And welcome to another edition of Duckstone Sports. This time it's installment number 2 of my baseball previews, as this time I preview the American League Central. Should be interesting with a lot of top teams like Detroit at the top and a lot of upcoming teams like Kansas City and Cleveland coming up the rear. Well, I'll start with, of course, last series World Series runner-ups, the Detroit Tigers. Interesting season for Detroit Tigers. Biggest question for them: can they go back to the World Series? I mean, this team is locked and loaded again, led by an impressive pitching staff. That's definitely their strength, with Verlander, Fister, and Sanchez, who they brought back in free agency, signed to a big deal. And this is a pretty deep rotation. I mean, it might be one of the deeper rotations in all of Major League Baseball. It's definitely a strength, because that's how they win games, is by their pitching, because they got some hitters like Prince Fielder and a few more. But if Detroit Tigers are going to win games this year, it's going to be because of their pitching staff. And I really like Tigers here. I really think they could be that dominant team in the American League again. I mean, of course, last year what happened with them is that they got off to such a slow start and then crawled themselves back into it. But by midseason, you could see it was Detroit Tigers, who we all thought would be all year. And Detroit Tigers in the playoffs were pretty good until they got to the World Series, where they did stub their toe, but very dominant in the American League playoffs there. And what more can I say about Detroit Tigers? They're probably one of the best teams in the American League, maybe one of the best teams in baseball. And I think with the roster they have in hand right now, with the pitching staff they have, and with Prince Fielder and all the other great hitters they have, I really think they are the class of the American League right now. And I really think they have a great chance to go back to the World Series in 2013. Next team, the Chicago White Sox. Biggest question: can they bounce back from a rough offseason and a rough end to season last year? Of course, pretty much the last month of the season, they basically were first in the division basically all year round. And just at the end of the year, we finally saw the real Chicago White Sox team just stub their toe at the end of the season. Didn't make it, almost made a wild card, but didn't quite make the playoffs. Which makes no sense, because they got some players on this team, from guys like Adam Dunn, Alex Rios, Jake Peavy. I mean, from top to bottom, they have a pretty talented roster and probably should compete for a playoff spot this year. I mean, they're very, very talented. And I think with it getting they're getting a little older though. These aren't spring chickens anymore. And I just think Chicago White Sox have been a pretty stable organization for pretty much the last decade or so. I mean, usually always around the playoffs. Winning a World Series, sometimes in the playoffs. I mean, very, very stable, very good organization that Kenny has built there. And I really like this team this year. I really think they are a dark horse to win the Central. Everybody's on the Tigers this year, but I really think they could be that team that really stands in the way of the Chicago White Sox. But I think 2013 there could be a surprising year, and don't be surprised if Chicago White Sox win the Central, or even go on to maybe a World Series, because crazier things have happened. Our next team, a team I really like, a team I think could make great strides this year. Of course, I'm talking about the Kansas City Royals. Biggest question for Kansas City: can they make the next jump? They've been that joke organization who every time they look like they take the next jump, they just struggle and go the opposite way. I mean, from the days with Greinke, when they just could never get over that hump, and could never get over just being the joke of the league. And last year, for say it would be said, but the Kansas City Royals came pretty close. The team almost made the playoffs last year. For a team, and of course, they got off to a horrible start last year, they probably would have made the playoffs. I mean, their second half, they were pretty good. And they did a big deal in the offseason, bringing in Shields from Tampa Bay. And I really think this is probably their next ace in the rotation. I mean, they have so many good young players on this roster, from Homester to Gordon to Butler. I mean, very, very impressive. And I just think the only question for this: can they mesh? How early are they going to mesh together? And will it be a good season for Kansas City? Because I really like Kansas City going in a few years. I think Kansas City Royals might be one of the best teams in baseball with all the great young talent they have. 2013, they got some teams ahead of them like Detroit and Chicago, but I think Kansas City is a dark horse to win the Central this year, and I really like this team going forward. And watch out, because I truly believe the Kansas City Royals will make some noise in 2013. Our next team, another upcoming team, the Cleveland Indians. Of course, biggest question, can they finish? As the last couple of years, they get off to that hot start to start the year, but then just can't quite get the job done when games get a little more real on the second half of the season. And good sign in the offseason, we're getting Nick Swisher from formerly the New York Yankees. Just a veteran guy who knows how to win, knows how to get on base. Very, very impressive guy to get in the offseason, and a guy who wanted to go there, which shows, maybe the strides they've taken in the last couple of years. And this team, their strength, let's be honest, their strength of the Cleveland Indians has to be their pitching staff, Jimez to Matt Masterson to all the other great pitchers they have. Like, the Cleveland Indians are going to win games this year based on their pitching staff. And that's what the Central really is. Central, they have a lot of good pitchers in this division, and I really believe they could maybe make some noise this year. I don't think they have enough, though. My problem with Cleveland, do they have enough to win the Central? I don't think they do, as I just think at the end of the day, I just think they might be 1 or 2 years away from competing for the Central. But hey, who knows? Crazy things have happened, and we'll see. But I think in 2013, the Cleveland is in for a rough year. And our final team, used to be a stable organization in all of the MLB. Of course, talking about the Minnesota Twins. And the biggest question, is it time they just blow this thing up and start rebuilding? And I think it is. I think it's time they just, trade a Justin Morneau and make Joe Mauer the face of the franchise if he already isn't. I mean, Justin Morneau, for my money, is still one of my favorite players in all of baseball. And I think it's time, maybe a team in his home country of Canada. The Toronto Blue Jays looking for a first baseman, maybe one player away there. Justin Morneau, I think that could be a fit there, but only time will tell. He's got a big deal. It's gonna be hard to move, but a guy who will become a free agent next year, and I don't see him sticking around in Minnesota. So is it time for Minnesota to rebuild? I think it is. And that being said, I think the Minnesota Twins are in for a rough year with not much there. I mean, their pitching staff isn't really that good anymore. The runs don't come as rapidly as they used to come. And Minnesota, I think they're in for a rough year, and I think 2013 will not be pleasant. But at the end of the day, my division winner for the American League Central has to be one team. It has to be the Detroit Tigers. In my opinion, one of the best teams in baseball, best team in the AL. So for 2013, your Central winning team will be the Detroit Tigers. We'll stay tuned next time, because my next preview will be the American League West. Really competitive last couple of years. Teams like Texas got in a few World Series. The Angels, with all the big signs they've done the last 2 years. The Oakland A's, very impressed and shocked a lot of people, went to the playoffs last year. And, of course, Seattle, still a good team there in Seattle. But till next time, I'm Aaron Dutch for saying, I'm Dux, and I know sports. Got it.